Let's Get Down to Business is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. All this week, it's news you can use. And on today's show, our underwriting update for October 2013. And with me, our nationally recognized impaired risk experts, Tim Ash and Joe Brito. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author of Backroom Technician. We're on location in Indianapolis, Indiana. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Steve. Good
Joe,
to be here.
Hey, it's good to have you both here. Of course, we're right in the middle of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we're really featuring today's impairment is breast cancer. Now, I know this is really a myth out in consumer land. Most people, Tim, say, you know what, I have breast cancer, I can't get insurance. I've had it.
Steve, we hear that all the time. We hear it from advisors. We hear it from consumers. I've had an event, breast cancer, and I can't qualify for insurance. And that is one of the biggest myths that we've seen in underwriting breast cancer. In fact, we're seeing many people get standard to preferred rates that have had breast cancer.
Now, when you say that, did they have to have some time out after that event? Like a year after the event, 2 years, stage 1, stage 2? What's the rules of engagement?
It depends on the staging. Mm-hmm. Certainly, the earlier the diagnosis, the type of detection that the facility used to determine what type of cancer it was, and then the course of treatment will determine how soon. And I know our Joe Brita here can elaborate more on some of the outcomes that we've seen.
Well, Joe, when I'm thinking of carriers, now they've really changed the way they look at this. I mean, 10 years ago, we were not getting the benevolent underwriting we're getting today. So we've really learned a lot. The medical advancement's been huge. Talk to me a little bit about when we're trying to look at a case, how can I pre-qualify a client so that I can say, hey, should I really do this? How do I do it? How do I position the case? You do this every day. Talk about boots on the ground underwriting.
Yeah, well, underwriting, especially in cancers, is pretty black and white. You know, pathology is a pathology, and the staging is a staging. Where we are different, where we come in, is we try to take that black and white and be the client's advocate and be able to pull out some positives, challenge the manual. Mm-hmm. You know, where the manual says do this, that's a guideline. That's not the rule. Mm-hmm. And to be able to pull out positives, make the carrier more comfortable based on their awareness, based on their prevention, you know, post-treatment for prevention of recurrences. Those are the ways that we're able to come out with a better outcome. Now,
the proprietary process that you use actually ferrets out these issues, and you'll know specifically what carrier, because not every carrier looks at these APSs and some of the data that you're collecting in the same way.
Correct. Yeah, some carriers are more aggressive than others, even down to specific cancers. Some carriers like certain types of cancers where they feel they can be more aggressive based on the data they have versus others. And that's our job to know that.
Tim, I've heard you say this is one of your mantras, that you say about half of America who's already has a policy in force is probably paying too much or in the wrong rate class. Is that true even in breast cancer?
I would say so, yes. And that is a bold statement we make.
It is.
And we see it day in and day out, Steve, where people come to us with insurance that they own. Mm-hmm. And the process that Joe is explaining is underwriting advocacy. And so often, the advisor and or the client do not know to ask the next questions, or they are not working with a firm or an insurance company that treats certain cancers or certain conditions in a different light. Our role at Ash Brokerage is to be that client's advocate. Mm-hmm. And when we see people that are rated, and you don't even have to be rated, it can be standard or preferred, you still might not be in the right rate class. So what we do is through our team of underwriters, our medical director, and the number of cases that we look at on an annual basis, we know where to go, who to go to, and we find in that statistic, it's not just a number we throw out there. We see that in over half of the situations that we're reviewing, where folks are in the wrong rate class.
To me, that's an amazing issue. If you're already have a policy in force and you have breast cancer, you may want to do a relook on this. We're talking about saving money on an indemnification plan, and I think that's really worth looking at. Joe, when you're looking at carriers, there's so many carriers that we deal with. I mean, we're talking almost 100 different types of carriers, but how many really play in this space when you're talking about breast cancer?
Yeah, well, you're looking at, you know, depending on term and permanent, Some carriers are more aggressive in those different
Let me
areas.
just stop you there. Why is that? Why is there such a distinction on product? The 20-year term rate versus a permanent policy, it would seem like it's so close from a mortality point of view.
Well, not necessarily the mortality point of view, but you've got we are in the unbiased approach, right? So we're looking at what's the best option for the client. If that may mean that John Hancock, for example, is very competitive in the permanent land, but they don't have the most competitive term pricing. So it wouldn't be right for us to place a client with John Hancock in term, just as an example.
So you're ferreting out, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're making a tale of two cities. I'm looking at product arrangement, first in the global view, term or perm, and then I'm looking from that. Then I'm starting to look at those specific carriers in term or those specific carriers in permanent that you want to have them look at this case the way you packaged it.
Absolutely right. And that's where Tim says a lot. Our job is to be a matchmaker for the client and the carrier.
So in effect, we are eharmony.com, basically.
Correct.
We are the eharmony.com for life insurance.
I love that. In fact, I want to just start doing our cases on eBay and just see how that goes. Well, Tim, when we're thinking about this, I mean, you've been underwriting, I mean, since the day you were born practically. I mean, you've been in this business a long time. I've known you ever since you're in your late 20s. But when I'm looking at cases like this at Breast Cancer Awareness Month, you're really inviting people that have policies. That's what I'm hearing you say. Inviting people that have policies on the books that have been rated to get a second look, a second opinion.
Yes. We say this, getting a second opinion only produces a good outcome. And what I mean by that is simple. You either validate that what you own is priced correctly and performing the way you want it to, or we find opportunities to either lower your price, get you enhanced coverage, and that's our role. That's why we say doing a review, doing an audit, only good will come from it. And it's not just in-force policies, Steve. Again, you started by asking the question, what do we try to keep people from assuming they can get a certain, or that it's too expensive. And so our role, our job is to help folks understand that just because you've had an impairment, that don't falsely assume that you cannot get valuable and cost-effective protection.
When we come back from the break, we'll continue our underwriting update for October 2013 and feature real cases with real challenges and the unconventional approaches that help place these cases in force. And remember, you can discuss your own difficult case with any of our 8 in-house underwriters. Just go to www.downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com and request a one-on-one consultation. And remember to sign up for your own 30-day free trial offer for background technician at www.brtnow.com/trialsignup.aspx. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back. I'm Steve Savant with Tim Ash and Joe Breda. And remember, you can watch all our episodes of Let's Get Down to Business, including my weekly consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game, right at ashbrokerage.com. And just click on that show logo as soon as you come to our homepage. And remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, your legal counsel, as well as your broker-dealer compliance officer. Well, let's get down to business. We're continuing our underwriting update for October 2013 and featuring real cases with real challenges and, I have to say, the unconventional approaches that helped us place these cases in force.
Well, in our second segment, I want to put real people with real cases. So let's just talk about one of the breast cancer cases that we looked at. And remember, what we're going to talk about are really anomalous issues. I mean, you think about this, these cases have been placed at ratings that I would have never thought we would have gotten. Joe, talk to me about one of your first cases that you looked at.
Yeah, I mean, and this goes back to what we were saying about manual versus the outside the box thinking. One of the ones that stands out to me where I think we did a real good job of doing that was a case that we did with MetLife. It was a survivorship case. The husband was healthy, but the wife was going through some testing where they identified some microcalcifications in her breast. Was very early. They weren't quite sure what that was. They were very small, and we took the approach of this. MetLife came back to us and said she's uninsurable, meaning that we believe that that could potentially be cancer. Until we know.
But why did you go to Met first? What was your first impulse? Why did you show it to them?
Well, this actually started with Met purely because of pricing.
So product was the winner.
Correct. The microcalcifications came up during the underwriting process. Our unique approach was to go to MetLife and say this: even if she has cancer, it's going to be so early, she's so on top of it, that the chances of them being able to successfully treat it are very, very good. So why would we penalize her with an uninsurable rating? Why don't we meet in the middle and give her some sort of a mid to moderate substandard rating? It made the pricing work, which goes to Tim's point of our holistic approach. We don't just focus on rate class, we focus on the funding, the affordability to the client. We were able to get MetLife to move off of an uninsurable risk class to a table 4 in a situation where we weren't sure if she had cancer or not.
And most carriers would have been completely declination.
The manual would have called for uninsurable.
Okay. Okay, now see, to me, that is so proactive, and this is one of the things that we're talking about is proactive underwriting, where you're preparing a case for the underwriter to show them we're on their side as well. We're trying to help their balance sheet as well as the client's pricing. Talk about another case, because you have several there, and this one is really unique. Talk about the second one.
Yeah, the second one is, and we're gonna use MetLife again on this case. Was on a younger lady that had localized breast cancer. She went through a lumpectomy, which basically removes the tumor, not the entire breast. During that process, it was identified that she had tested positive for the breast cancer gene. She had the mutation, which in our world we call the BRCA gene.
Is the BRCA gene the same thing that Angelina Jolie had?
That's correct.
That is the same exam?
That is correct. And basically, that gene, if you test positive for that gene, the 1 or 2, puts you at a very high risk that you're going to develop breast cancer or potentially ovarian cancer at some point in your life. Depending on the study, you're looking at 80 to 85% chance.
Oh, that's awfully high.
So this lady is, during her treatment for her breast cancer, it's identified that she is positive for that gene. In a preventative measure, she has a double mastectomy done. So we're able to take that of her preventative measures to go to MetLife and say, look, this is not your normal breast cancer case. She's doing everything that she can to ensure that this doesn't happen again. This case by the manual was standard at best, and we were able to achieve a preferred outcome for her.
Tim, this whole genetic, isn't this somewhat relatively new to underwriting? This kind of testing at this level?
It is. It's very new, Steve, and for us to be on the forefront of underwriting and medicine, and as it relates to insurance, it's very important. That's why we believe that our unique abilities, our unique talents are to constantly try to find ways to represent and present facts to the insurance companies, whether it's through gene testing or specific testing, to help get better outcomes. That's our role.
Well, I love it because it's really in defense of the client's position here, and that's why we're all over that. Talk about one of these other ones, because really we have seen some really good underwriting offers that, in my view, are way outside the 9 dots.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And to kind of emphasize that point, with this being somewhat new to our industry, the genetic testing, the carriers are all over the place on this, where some of them don't factor it in at all. Some of them will table rate because of a positive genetic test. Prudential is one of those carriers that we're able to work with. We had an example with an individual where she had she had a family history of breast cancer in her mother. So to be proactive, she went in and had the genetic testing done. That came back positive as well. But we position those to say, if she's that proactive, what are the chances of her having more routine mammograms than the normal person, more self-checks? If she went to that extent, this is a good risk. If something's ever going to happen to her, they're going to catch it early. And we're able to position that to Prudential to where they came back to us with a preferred outcome when several carriers are at 2 to 3 tables.
Well, see, that's the distinction. Now, what does Met and Pru see that these other carriers who would do it have done a table rating 2 to 3 tables all day long?
Well, I think they're focusing more on the preventative end of it. and being on top of it. If they misfire and they're offering preferred on this individual and she does develop cancer, they're taking the bet that they're going to catch it early because they are so on top of it. And breast cancer is something that's very treatable if you're able to catch it early and treat it. So I think that's the stance that they take with it, is they're willing to take that risk, assuming that that individual is going to take proactive care.
I just want to encourage everybody in our audience, if you're watching this and hearing this, this is a time, if you have people that are suffering with cancer and they think, oh, I can't get coverage, I'd really like to do things for my children and have a legacy. We have new opportunities in underwriting. We're talking about genetic testing. We are down and drilling deep. So I just want to encourage you to go ahead, and if you have a contract already on force, I want you to look at it. Maybe you could save yourself some serious money.
Well, that's our show for today. Remember, you can read all my online insurance commentary, advisor blogs, and articles on Producer's Web, as well as my answers to consumer questions on Insurance Library. And don't forget, you can view all the past episodes on our on-demand video section located at www.downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. So don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor.